Hi, everyone. Welcome to Data Platform Virtual Summit 2022. This is the Americas edition. We're super excited. The last 4 editions in that APAC, India, EMEA were so well received. This edition is, of course, a special one because we are hosting the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion panel here, led by Dr. Sangeeta Gupta. We are very thankful to our panelists, and I want to take this honor to call all of them. Welcome to Data Platform Virtual Summit, led by Dr. Sangeeta Gupta. We have Deepthi, Sanil, Vanessa, Priyanka, Michelle, Thomas, Brian, Edward, and Tanya. Thank you all for taking out time and doing this for us. Dr. Sangeeta,
Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure.
Over to you.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located, to our attendees. My name is Dr. Sangeeta Gupta, and I'm in Southern California. I would like to welcome all of our panelists today and to thank them for being with us. Can we have the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Tanya?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Pupko. Originally, I'm from Russia, and now I'm living in Spain. I'm a Business Central functional consultant. I have more than 14 years experience with Microsoft products, especially with Business Central and Navision, and I like Power Platform products. And I like to share knowledge how we can combine this product together. And thank you for having me for this session today. I'm really glad to participate in this session.
Well, thank you for being here. Vanessa, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Vanessa Toves. I am a Microsoft 365 solution architect. So I actually am living in Jacksonville, Florida right now. And I've worked in technology for many, many years, since before the very first version of SharePoint on premises. And my background's kind of like really focused using Microsoft technologies. And Tatiana, I think right along with you, right, in terms of helping people learn how to use Microsoft tools. So.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Deepthi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time for attending this panel. And I'm so glad to be here. My name is Deepthi Goguri, and I'm a database administrator having like 8+ years of experience. And what is me related to the diversity panel is something like I'm a co-organizer for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Data Platform User Group. And also I do volunteer for Women in Technology as well. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here today in this panel.
We're very happy to have you. Sanil, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Hello, everyone. I am Sanil Mhatre. I lead the data science team at Worldwide Technology. We are a technology and consulting solutions provider based in St. Louis, Missouri. I personally am based in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. I have been in IT for about 15+ years, and I am really excited to be a part of this panel discussion today.
We're very happy to have you. Edward, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm Edward Pollack. I've been working in IT software development for over 20 years. I'm currently a senior data architect over at Datto. My role really here is I've been organizing events for almost 10 years in the SQL world, SQL Saturdays and other like smaller events. And diversity has been a huge issue in many of them, and especially since the pandemic. And I would really interested in hearing what everyone has to say today and adding my experience to that as well. So thank you for having me here.
We're very pleased to have you. And last but certainly not least, TJ, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, hello. My name is Thomas Grohser. I'm a 33-year veteran of being an IT professional. I'm a SQL Server infrastructure architect and an MVP and speaker for more than 15 years now. I'm currently in Chicago, but I also worked in Europe. And when I researched for this panel, the interesting thing is I found out that since ever I entered the workforce, I always had a woman in the team or I was supervising a woman, or I was supervised by a woman. So I never had a job that did not put me side by side with awesome women. So that's my perspective that I will represent.
Thank you for sharing that. That's fabulous. Very happy to have you here today. We have a lot to discuss today, so we're going to get right into it.
You forgot someone. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I think you forgot someone.
So sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
It's okay. So I'll just introduce myself. Sorry, I just interrupted you. So my name is Michelle Gutzait. I'm originally from Israel. I live for 17 years in Montreal, Canada. I know Edward very well. We've been doing things together. I'm a senior data architect at EPAM, and I am also a data platform MVP. And I'm doing a lot of presentations and online stuff. And I've been in IT for over 34 years or so, and 25 years with the SQL Server and the Azure Data Platform, and also other cloud providers. So, and I've been part of many other forums about diversion and inclusions. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for that opportunity.
We're very happy to have you. So we decided as a panel that we were going to start by defining diversity, equity, inclusion, a couple of other terms, so that we were all speaking with a shared language. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so can everyone see it?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to start today by defining some terminology, and then we're going to talk about how women are faring in the technology industry globally. Are they being treated as equals? Is there pay equity? Are they being respected for their expertise? We're going to talk about some common behaviors that women often face in the working environment: man-interrupting, bro-creating, mansplaining. And then we're also going to talk about solutions, because it's really important to have knowledge and have these discussions, but what is it that we can do about them? So give you some practical tools that you can take back to the working environment. So first of all, I want to explain that diversity, equity, inclusion is a journey that every single person is on. Even though I've been in this field for 25 plus years, I'm still on this journey. No one is ahead, no one is behind. We are on our own personal journey, and we need to meet each other where the other person is at in order to have effective communication. Diversity is not about numbers. So many times people that I'm working with, C-suite executives, et cetera, say, you know what, we've got a lot of women. We have a ton of women, but when you actually look at where the women are, or the racial ethnic minorities are, they're at the lower levels. They're not in the higher levels. So diversity is not about having numbers. It's really about treating people with respect and creating that welcoming environment. So the second part of DEI is equity. And this diagram shows where most organizations, most industries across the board are here. The tree with the apple on it represents the goals that we are all trying to achieve. And as you can see, people are starting from different places in life because we come from different backgrounds, et cetera. And so a lot of times the goals that we're trying to achieve are not within our reach. And what most organizations will try and do is they create an environment of equality where they are giving the same solution for everybody. But as you can see, that same solution, it gets them closer to the goals, but it doesn't allow them to reach the actual goal. So what is it that we need? We need to create an environment of equity where different solutions are given to different individuals based on their needs so that they can reach the same goals that everyone else has access to. That is really what we're trying to do, is an environment of equity, not an environment of equality. And then the third part of DEI is the concept of inclusion. We can bring women into the working environment. We can bring other groups into the working environment. But if we don't create an environment that supports their needs and fully includes them, not at the lower levels, but giving them an actual seat at the table where they are listened to, their opinions are valued and respected and implemented, we're not creating an environment of inclusion. So we can bring anyone we want into the working environment, but without that environment of inclusion, they're not going to be able to succeed. And then when we come to bringing women into the workplace, one of the things that we had talked about as a panel is we want to define concepts like feminism and feminist. Feminism is the idea that women are equal. It's not about women are above men, women are below men. It's women are equal. That is the definition of feminism. And someone who's a feminist is someone who believes that men and women are equal. And a feminist can be a male or a female. My husband is a feminist. He truly believes that women are fully equal, and in the ways that he treats the women who work with him. So feminism is just the concept that women are equal, and feminist is just someone who believes that women are equal. We also wanted to make sure that that we had a chance to discuss the concept of expert syndrome. And this is when men, it's a very gendered concept, and this is where men and women are different. Women typically, and not every single woman, but generalizing, women typically believe that they need to be an expert at something before they do, like take a job, a promotion, or take on a very challenging project, etc. Men don't do this. Men feel, I'll learn while I'm doing it. So women really limit themselves with this concept of an expert syndrome. We have to get beyond that. We have to get to a place where we say, you know what? I don't know all of it. I'm not an expert in this area, but I am intelligent. I am capable of learning. That's what men do. And women turn down promotions and projects, etc., because they don't feel that they are an expert. And we need to get over this. So also want to talk about the concept of privilege or advantage. Privilege in itself is not a negative concept. All it means is that certain doors are open to you that may not be open to everybody. And gender is definitely a privilege. So there is male privilege that it exists in the vast majority of industries at different levels within leadership. That male privilege exists. And so women don't get the same opportunities that men do. And then we want to talk about the gender double bind. So women have to live up to societal norms and expectations, which limit their abilities in many, many ways. Then there's cultural norms. So by my name, you can easily tell that I'm of Asian Indian descent. So there are certain cultural norms that I was brought up with. My parents happened to be feminists, if you will, and they treated us equal. So I didn't have all of the cultural norms, but there are definitely cultural norms, and they exist in every society, etc. There's a concept of women leaders. Are you feminine enough? So if you are a strong leader, often you're seen as being, oh, you're too masculine, you're not feminine enough. And so there's preconceived ideas about what leadership looks like and how women need to fit into that. Women are also subjected to the idea of having to prove themselves over and over and over again. And also the whole concept of, are women assertive or are they aggressive? So a man who asserts himself is seen as being assertive. A woman who does the same thing is often seen as being aggressive. And then there's a whole concept of being liked. So women are conditioned a lot of times by our societal norms and our cultural norms to want to be liked. And that often limits them as leaders because men don't worry about that. Men lead and they do it with no apologies. A lot of times women are not just by themselves, but also through expectations are on this thing about, I have to be liked. And that's hard to be sometimes when you're a leader and you have to make those difficult decisions. So 3 cultural behaviors, conversational behaviors we want to talk about. One is man-interrupting. When a man interrupts a woman, this happens every culture, every society, every working environment, where men interrupt women at a much higher rate than women interrupt men. And this really stifles a woman's ability to be heard. Mansplaining. A man interrupting a woman to explain something to her, regardless of her level of expertise on the topic. And this is something that happens over and over again to women constantly. We were talking last week when we got together as a panel, how just that week alone, and we were talking, I believe, on a Thursday, 3 times I'd had someone mansplain things to me. Appropriating. A woman states an idea often at a meeting, no one pays attention to it, then a man restates it and he gets credit for it. And these are behaviors that happen oftentimes in meetings, and we as leaders, as participants in the meeting, we'll talk about this during our solutions section, is what can we do about it? How can we step in and be allies and champions? Okay, that is our section on terminology that we wanted everyone to have So now let's go into our questions. Tatiana, do you want to start and talk about where do you feel women are in the tech industry today? Are they being treated as equals? Do they have pay equity? Are they respected? Do you want to go ahead and start?
I absolutely agree with you about all these topics that for women it is more complicated to be expert in sphere than for men because of gender, and you know that we have some gender duties like childbirth, for example, and child caring, and we need to spend time, and it is absolutely normal. Then we can stop our career or our path to somewhere in technologies and go to another sphere and then come back. And when you lose 2 years, when you come back, you see that technology is completely different than it was. And I believe that we can suggest some ways for women to help them to be on the way during this period of time, because it is a really difficult period of time for women when they have little children. It is the first 2 years, and in this period they can't compete, and that's why, of course, they have less salary and less abilities to grow their career or their path in technologies, you know.
Absolutely agree with you. Michelle, any thoughts?
Yes, so I do have some stories. I've lived in a few places in the world, and I could see the difference. So I was born and raised in Israel, where I did not feel any problems with equality. When you give birth, you have only 12 weeks of maternity leave, so you're not away for a long time, so your career is not really affected. But when I moved to Canada, I realized that there are less and less women in technology. So we're always joking during events that it's the only place where the lineup to the women bathroom is very, very short versus the lineup to the men's bathroom, because there are no women. I've been presenting in many places around the world, and this is across the board, and this is very weird. So I'm asking myself, why are women not going that path? Why do we see less women in technology than men? Basically, my story is that when I came to Canada, I was not chosen to on one of the jobs, and then I was called 2 months later, and they said, okay, we chose another candidate, and now we decided that you are the one that we want. And someone from that company told me, they saw a young woman with kids, and they decided that maybe this is not a good candidate. But then after I started, they realized that I work even harder than the men, and I do well. So that's my story. And me personally, I'm always very happy to work with women, especially young women, that I can help them. I try to be protective, and I see that there, because of all those workshops that we have around diversity and inclusion, even in the companies, men are more and more aware of that fact. So I think that opening eyes to men is very, very helpful, and this is why I'm so happy to be part of those workshops.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Absolutely, I agree with you in the sense that when we can have men part of the conversation, then they naturally become allies and champions because they see this happening with their own wives, they see this happening with their daughters, their coworkers, their sisters, etc. And so then they have a greater understanding of it. So they definitely need to be part of the dialogue. Deepthi, what do you think?
Thank you, Mrs. Gupta. So when you ask me like why do you think like women in technology are they in the right path, like why are we seeing the right amount of percentage? Like personally, if I talk about it, I think like we need to look way back and we need to look at like where it is starting from, like why the women are like not a good percentage of people, like why are they not in the good percentage in women in technology in the technical careers, is because like personally in my life what happened was like since the childhood, like me and my brother, so my brother was like allowed to play the video games and I was like allowed to play a little bit of video games but then do arts and like do the soft skills of stuff. Like we like as a woman, I think the girls are like they are like treated like a way like, hey, you are a girl so you need to be learning more of the like hospitality things, you need to end up in the medical field, or you need to be doing like arts and crafts stuff and the soft kind of like taking care, giving care kind of things. Like when I grew up, I did my intermediate in mathematics and technology, but then my father like he literally forced me to go into the medical field and do pharmacy. And when I asked the reason like why he thought I had need to do pharmacy, he told like my son needs to do the technical content, so he will be going to engineering school, and you need to go to the pharmacy, which I didn't like. So I told him like I don't like pharmacy, but then I was forced to do it. So by the time I completed pharmacy, I lost myself because I thought like I knew it in my heart that this is not the place I need to stay, and I don't want to see that in my future. So I stood up for myself and I fought for myself and I moved my career into technology couple of years ago. It's like exactly like 8 years ago, I moved into technology. So if we say like why women in technology, the percentages are low, we need to look back and see from where that is coming from. Like the conscious, like the unconscious bias that we have, like women are like supposed to be the caregivers, the hospitality thing, but they are not very well fit into the technology. I think we need to consciously look into what we are thinking, and we need to consciously make the decisions for the children, for the future girl children, and be open minded about it.
I absolutely agree with you. And there's a lot of pressure, even though, like I said, my parents were feminists, there was pressure to go into certain career paths. And, I was pushed into the medical field myself and I took the classes, anatomy, et cetera, but I did not feel that was my fit. And when I went to where my heart was, I felt I'm at home now. I feel like this is where I belong. And it's, a lot of the conditioning that we do with, girls and young boys as they're growing up, it makes a difference as to how they're able to, assert themselves and et cetera. So great job for you, asserting yourself and going where your heart is. Vanessa, do you want to give your thoughts? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, I think, very early on in my career, like one of my first real jobs in technology, I found myself one of 65, right? So IT was 65 or 64 other men in whatever, from infrastructure to database, but I was the only woman. And 25 years later, I find myself one of 65 again. And it's so, but there is definitely improvements in other aspects other than just the numbers, and in between all of those years, I've seen, ebbs and flows of my peers being women, or it just anyone in general that is, not necessarily white male. So that has absolutely adjusted over time, but it's fine. It's an interesting thing because I said it out loud the other day. And I said, wow, it's interesting how so much has changed, yet nothing has changed in some areas. So I think culturally, as a consultant, I've worked as an employee for large companies. I've also been a consultant for a number of companies. So I've been able to see a lot of the culture shifts. And luckily in the business that things that I do, I work a lot with HR departments. So I think I find that a lot of what drives these companies is truly that individual that comes into HR that says, okay, this is what our plan is. I mean, you might have someone that just flips a company upside down in terms of wanting to, really live DEI in their organization. But what I do find different even today, even though I am in a very technical role and I'm supporting this, this organization, culturally, it is different, right? In a lot of areas, there is a lot more understanding of a woman. I have 4 kids. I'm married to another woman. So, right. And I'm the one who works primarily. And my wife, we decided after with our 6-month-old that for right now, let's have you not work, right? Because there's too many kids. And so there's so much more, there definitely is more understanding in terms of what I need as an individual to also support my family as a woman. But even in my interactions with my team and my peers outside, I think there's more appreciation for the fact that, I am, I do bring what I bring to the table in terms of my expertise. And as for the financial aspect, I've always been a specialist, right? As over time, I built dashboards and so I was very specialized in certain areas, and I focused on SharePoint, and that's a very small subset of people that did that in a general technology field. So as I became more of a specialist, I also made it a point to understand and know what my role's value is and what generally is being paid to it. So I've been able to advocate for myself because I'm a specialist and because I do have a background. And so financially, it's been, I haven't quite felt that disparity. At least I don't think I am. But definitely, even though I'm one of 65 today, and in that case, the number hasn't changed from 25 years ago, I felt there's more improvement culturally with the appreciation, communication about value. I, however, did get a call. I was on a call the other day when someone said, hey, we need to talk to that girl, right? That girl. We met with her like a few months ago. She said something and we need to talk to that girl. And I'm like, that girl, it's definitely, it's interesting. I have experienced and have seen very much so firsthand the improvements really culturally. And like I said, I feel that it is a cultural message from the leadership of usually human resources, the upper echelon of a company itself, as to how well, whether the numbers represent it versus even culturally how it's appreciated.
Wow, you brought up so many amazing issues. I feel like we could have another panel discussion just on some of those other issues, because it is hard as balancing work and your family life. And I think the culture is, I agree with you, is definitely shifting. So I'm a mom of 2. I have twins, boy-girl twins. And when they were younger and I'd be working with clients, I would a lot of times hesitate, if I needed to leave early for X, Y, or Z or something like that. It was, you couch it as I have a meeting or I have another appointment or something like that. You don't come right out and talk about, hey, I'm a mom, I have other responsibilities. And I have found myself shifting that perspective. And it's like I bring my whole self to the working environment. I am a mother, I am a wife, I, have a professional career. And so I bring my whole life to the working environment. And now I don't make any bones about it. It's like, oh, well, I can't meet after X time because I've got child pickup, or I can't do this meeting because I have child drop off. I make no bones about it. And I think with the pandemic and working from home, I have seen a huge shift in this because you're bringing your personal life into the working environment because you're working from home. So I've seen a huge shift in that. And like I said, that's a great topic for another panel. But I do want to bring the men into the discussion as well. Sanil, do you want to go ahead and talk about what have you seen? I know you shared some things about, what you've heard from your wife and how that has impacted how you think about these issues. So I'd love for you to expand on that.
Sure. And I'll briefly pick up from where Vanessa left off, because I think she made some really interesting points that resonated with me as well. So I have worked in IT across 5 different companies in 3 countries for the past 15 years. And I do notice a difference in the numbers. Like when I was working in technology in India, especially as a database administrator, it was a heavily male-dominated field. It was a very, very bro culture. And as years have passed in my latest job, in my company, we have a pretty equal representation between men and women in the team that I lead. So in terms of numbers, I have seen a great deal of improvement. I'll bring my wife's perspective into this now. She has a bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, and a PhD in mechanical and aerospace engineering. Now that has traditionally been a male-heavy field. And throughout her education, she has always been, for the most part, just the only woman in her course, the only woman in her class. She did her master's degree in the States, her bachelor's degree in India, and her PhD across US and Canada. And qualitatively speaking, what I hear from her is a difference in the experience, as Vanessa pointed out. When she was doing her bachelor's degree in India, the culture was not really accommodating. She had to pretend to be one of the guys to feel like she is fitting into the culture. And she is welcomed as a part of the group only when she acts like she is one of the guys. As she progressed towards doing her master's and PhD, years have passed, geography has changed. Both of them may have contributed towards a much better experience. She can bring herself, her real self, in that environment and still feel welcome.
I can't tell if you're done because you froze for a second.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure I'm not interrupting you. Edward, you are next on my screen across the top. So do you want to give your perspective?
Sure, good old Zoom order. Honestly, in my career, it wasn't really until the point where I began organizing events and doing calls for speakers and asking for, hey, everybody out there, come submit your abstracts. I want to have you speak here at an event, that I began truly seeing firsthand like the real problem. I experienced it in the workplace where I worked on teams. There was like 10 guys and 1 girl or none or whatever. And that was always apparent to the point where like when I was in college, it was almost a joke. And it's not a joke. People treated it like one though. And it was when I organized events and firsthand saw a problem, developing, where I would have an event, there'd be 35 speakers, of which like 32 were guys. And I discovered that a lot of people treat this problem as one to solve later, as opposed to prevent. And I found that's always been the biggest issue, is that there's a lot of great discussions so far about culture, and it's really interesting. I'm enjoying the stories and what I'm hearing here and the perspective. And because of the culture though that we live in and the history, if you don't work to prevent a problem from happening, then you're basically allowing it. You're going along with the culture, allowing it to happen, and that results in this issue. And it was only when I realized it was a problem that all I began doing was advertising the calls for speakers in more places. I didn't go out and say, I want only women to be here or anything like that. That's not what diversity is. We've already defined it. We know better than that. But it was just simply saying, let's just advertise more to more people, more companies, more groups, more organizations, more colleges, get the word out there, talk individually to people, ask them for their opinions, get ideas. Where do you think we should be advertising? Oh, I didn't think of doing that. That's a great idea. And then having more diverse sessions too, more diverse tracks. I found that simply having a very narrow set of very, very technical tracks led to a very narrow set of very technical speakers. And I found that when the point came where I had a more diverse call for speakers and more diverse speakers, we had more diverse sessions, more diverse attendees, and more people. And I saw how just actively facilitating better diversity made it for a better event. I personally saw this and experienced it and loved it, and realized that you can't fix a problem passively. There is no passive fix. Simply being not an instigator doesn't make you the good guy or anything. And I see this from many people all over the place. I'm not being political. I'm not part of the problem. Well, yes, you are. You didn't help. You also said dumb things. Like, there's a lot of that out there. And I find, the attitudes of people range from allies who are here to help and support everyone, no matter where they're from, to people that are outwardly just troublemakers and stifling diversity. And they'll hide behind words and actions that almost make them sound good. It almost make you feel guilty for challenging them, but it's kind of up to us to be those challengers. And I find that when men challenge other men on it, they have a harder time reacting than when it's women sometimes. And that difference in reaction is important. It's up to us to stop this. So and my wife always told stories about it too, about in her career, in her life. The earliest was like, oh, I was just 8 years old and I want to pick up an instrument and I really want to play saxophone. And my mom was like, no, you're playing the flute. And like, from moments like that, I just keep hearing these stories all over the place, and I always just remember them and think of them. And that if you aren't actively doing something positive, then you're part of this negative problem. And I think I rambled a bit there, so I'll hand it back to you. But it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said was absolutely right, spot on. So if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And I also agree completely with what you were saying about when men step in and address a behavior with other men, it's taken differently than when women do it. And I think that's why it's so important that men be part of the solution that we're talking about, because without their participation, I think we're not going to make as much progress. So absolutely agree with you on all of those points that you made, is that we have to actively address it. And if we're not actively addressing it, we are allowing it to go on. So, and it's interesting you talk about the sax, because my daughter plays alto sax in the marching band, and one of the dads of one of our friends said, suggested that she try a smaller instrument because it would be easier for her to carry around. So not bad intention, but and we told her, my husband and I said, you play what you want to play. We have no issue with whatever you want to play. So I think it's creating those environments, and these happen all the time. I mean, even outside of tech, it's not just the tech industry that this type of behavior is seen. I remember even in my educational background, I was told when I was in my PhD program that I was taking the spot of a man, and I should be at home having kids because, I was getting up there in age and it's time for me to get married and have kids. I was also told that going for my PhD, I was educating myself out of the marriage market because I could only marry a man with either a PhD or an MD, so I might want to reconsider my quest for a PhD. So these barriers are put into place. No one would ever dream of saying that to a man, but these barriers are put into place for women, and it depends on, as Deepthi was saying, is that, when you get you're comfortable with yourself, you can respond back and not react to that. And so my response was, any man who's afraid of 3 letters after my name is not anyone I would be interested in the first place. So we have to push back, but we have to be in a place ourselves where we can push back. We have enough self-confidence, enough knowledge of ourselves so that we can push back against these actions. And TJ, can we get your perspective on the topic? You're on mute.
Sorry. As I said before, during my whole career, I always worked with women, for women, or supervising them. What I noticed in this period of time, that I really always want to have a woman or multiple of them, and I'll get to why this is hard to actually do in the team. Because what I noticed is that they were always way better at their job than every man doing the same job. Yeah. And since you can see this on my age, I'm around for a long time. So when I started, when a woman was in technology, she usually exceeded at her field because otherwise she would not be there. Yeah. So but even these days, a very different perspective. Yeah. And while I fully agree that men and women should be treated equally in housing, I do not believe that they are equal. Women think different, and that's not good or bad. That is just different, and they approach it from a different angle that I would never see. Yeah, and I need the help from someone that looks at it from the other side and tells me, "Hey, we have a different way of doing this." So that's my thing. And why I'm saying it's so hard to have more than one or two in the team, my record was 3, and this is why we had in the beginning the explanation of the expert syndrome, is when I got a stack of resumes to hire someone new from HR, there were 100 men and maybe 1 or 2 women. Yeah? So just by sheer numbers, it's the chance that these 2 are the best candidate, and often they were. Don't get me wrong there. Is hard. So there's way less candidates applying for the same job, and I think that is it's that I talk to other women at conferences about this. I'm like, hey, I'll see like 10% women at the conference, but I only get like 1% resumes, and that doesn't compute with me because it should be at least 10%. And then they explained to me, oh no, if you put out 10 requirements and if I don't have all 10, I'm not applying. I'm like, no, I mean, if you have 2 or 3, that's probably more than average that applies for that job. And that's the part where I try to make a difference to get the word out. Hey, try to apply, even if you're not 100% a fit for a job. Every job I applied for, I guarantee you I didn't fit all the lines. I know, especially because almost every job in the world requires you to have a college degree, and I don't. And I just apply anyway. And in the end, it doesn't matter.
Well, that was a perfect segue into what we're going to discuss next, which is how do we get women into the working environment in this field? What are some of the things that we can do to increase that pipeline? So, Edward, do you want to start with this?
I really find personally from this experience, I've worked on teams that were half and half men, women, and teams that were all male. And I found the experience is really, and this kind of goes back to what Thomas was talking about. When you're putting out those recs, when HR is reaching out to the world for people to apply, how are they doing it? How are they structuring those job requirements? Are they explaining the job as it will be? Or are they throwing a whole long bullet list of here's what you need to do the job? And because we don't really care, most of the time you don't need to have 20 bullet points checked off. You see somebody who's capable of most of it and who will grow and learn and figure it all out. And who are they reaching out to? Are they just dropping it on all the boards, or are they reaching out to more groups and more areas? Where do you advertise those positions? Do you encourage the people on your team to reach out, or is it 100% an HR function? And I think a lot of how you reach out is how you proactively get more people to apply and find better candidates as a result of that. If you just use the same tried and true methods of 1960, you're going to have the same diversity as you would have had in 1960, and it's not going to be any different. So I definitely think that really just spreading the network as far as possible, reaching out more, encouraging more people. If you're HR and you have a database administrator role, have that database administration team reach out, have their managers reach out, the engineers reach out, other people reach out to diverse networks of people and encourage people to apply, even if they don't have all the bullet points. And ideally, there won't be superfluous bullet points. There'll be a rec that describes, here's the job is, here's why you want it, here's why you should apply. And it shouldn't somehow wall people out either. I do find that a lot of job recs wall people out. They make the job sound like a wonderful place to go if you're a dude. And as soon as you do that, who's going to apply? And so I really just feel like it's very much an HR problem. And a lot of time the engineering teams and the development teams and the administration teams wall themselves off from it. Like, this is a HR problem. We're here to work and do technical stuff. So they'll figure it out, and they don't figure it out. They're terrible at it half the time. And so I find that's really the huge challenge.
I absolutely agree with you that you have to widen where you're looking. And also, one other tactic is blind resumes. Take the names off of resumes, take off identifying things off of the resume. So you're really evaluating the resumes on a case-by-case basis. You're not have any preconceived biases, et cetera. Vanessa, do you want to weigh in on how to increase the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely, Edward, what you were talking about is right. What's happening now for the recs now for the jobs. But one of the reasons why I present and have presented at any opportunity throughout my career, right, of course, it's to have more visibility, but there needs to be examples of a woman in technology that's visible, right? So if I am looking at, right, is it TJ? Is that right? I think that's right. You were talking about conferences. For women, we do need to step up more and share our knowledge. That's one of the ways that you can do, right, to kind of affect that. But also the other thing is, I've taken part of a number of events, like when I used to live in Salt Lake City, I was a mentor at the SheTech. So this is where they're bringing in high school girls. They brought in, I think the sessions that I had, there was like 1,000 girls from all the high schools, and they brought them in to this one, on this one day. And it was an amazing event. And what I look for now too is, even with my kids' school, so I have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old and my daughter who's 9, right? If I can have the opportunity, I'll go talk at her school. I've talked before when she was in, I think, 2nd grade. So I think not only do we have to affect and look for opportunities, yes, for these job requisitions now, and bringing our network in, but we have to begin to show, right, and be examples and mentors for college age women, for high school, for junior high, for elementary. Right, this is like, my daughter wasn't really interested in anything technology-wise until she started realizing that she really likes maps. And we talked about how maps are made, and even the satellites of how images are made. And there's technology aspects in so many things, in so many careers. So one, absolutely focusing on what we can affect now, but always having the future sight in mind as to being able to be an example, to share your knowledge with others that are younger, that are of different cultures, and that's kind of what I try and do and look for.
And I absolutely agree with you. And another great topic for a panel is, how do we bring the next generation? How do we get the next generation excited, of girls excited about technology and what they can do, and expand what their knowledge is about technology. And then when they see women in these positions, then it's like, oh, I can do that too, which is just such an eye-opener for a lot of girls and boys who don't see women in those fields. And so it's so important for that to happen. Deepthi, do you want to give your perspective?
So when I started my job as a database administrator, and while I was going through my initial training to get a job as a DBA, even my trainer stopped me and asked, "Deepthi, are you sure? Are you sure you want to be a database administrator?" Then I was like, I really like the job. I mean, I really like this training, taking care of the servers. Why do you ask? He said, like, if there are like 100 DBAs, there are like 95 men, and there will be only 5 women. So there is highly unlikely that if you go to your office, you will be the only woman DBA out there. Are you sure? And then the selection process might be different, because all the other rest of the DBAs are male, and they will be looking out for the male as well, because they are the ones who will be taking your interview. So that struck me, that made me think, but then I did not stop there. So when the resumes come into the place, like when during the selection process, like there was an example that really happened. Like there are two resumes, one is male and one is other female resume, made like very similar way. But then when they came to know that the woman resume, they found the resume, the points that she mentioned, like a rude, like she's being bossy. But the same resume, when a male submitted, that looked like, oh my God, this is so confident. Like he shows his confidence in the resume. Let's pick this. But then if you remove the names from the resumes, both of them got picked. So what is the difference here? Like why? So this is like an intentional, we need to be intentional and we need to be consciously present and know that there is this unconscious bias in our mind, and we need to consciously make the decisions. Like we can't allow those unconscious bias to be in place, because these kind of mistakes do happen unintentionally.
Right, there's a very famous case study on this. It's called a Heidi Howard case study, and where they took the identical resumes. It was actually a real resume, a woman named Heidi, and they just took the exact same resume and they changed the name to Howard. And he was perceived exactly the way you said, very, very differently. You know, he was confident, he was a leader, she was obnoxious, she was, aggressive, etc., and not well liked, with that whole concept of women needing to be liked, etc. So that's one of the reasons for the recommendation of take the names and other identifying information off of resumes as you evaluate them. Michelle, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. So I would like to continue what Vanessa said, and you, Dr. Gupta. So personally, I try to lead by example. So every time I have a chance to talk about my career and my achievements, I do talk about that to men and women, in the hopes that other people will see that and encourage the young generation to do the same. So here's a woman that was able to do such and such, and is confident and is doing well. I'm also trying, and I have been part of some sessions to speak to college students or university students about careers, and we always touch that topic around women in technology and how did you do it and stuff, which I'm sure that a man is not asked while interviewed, how come did you do it, because we perceive women differently. On a personal level, I have 4 kids, and one of my sons is a developer, and he's trying to convince his younger sister to go and study computers. And I just realized this is also a cultural thing, because she loves mathematics, she loves technology, but none of her friends, she doesn't want to go that route because none of her friends is going that route. So it's like, for me, it's where does it start? Like, why are the girls, or the girls I'm saying because they're young, why do they not choose this path at all? What's wrong with the advertisement? What's wrong with what they see around? And I'm not sure how to resolve this. Anyways, I'm trying to talk about my career with everywhere I go. And I do notice that it's also, yes, it's a cultural thing. So there are parts of the world where you will see maybe 50-50, and other parts of the world where you will see a very small percentage of women in technology. I would be happy to always contribute and talk to people that want to choose a career path and choose this. I'm also, as part of my job, I'm interviewing a lot of people, either internally in our company or outside of the company. And what I did notice is that when I'm interviewing a man, they're more confident than a woman. And I try, me as an interviewer, so I'm sure that if, for example, you have HR interviewing the person, they will make an equal assumption between men and women. But me, since I understand the background, I try to provide an environment for the woman to feel more comfortable, especially because I'm a woman myself. So I feel like we need to understand the differences and where the background, and even if you're a man interviewing a woman, try to understand and be more empathetic and you know and help that woman to do good in the interview. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, your 2 cents are definitely very valuable. That was some great thoughts. I do want to take a question from one of our viewers. Susan is asking, any advice you have for those who want to be D&I advocates but are not sure how to start? Deepthi, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts about how someone can be a D&I advocate in the working environment?
Knowledge is power. By doing a lot of research and knowing what they are actually advocating is really important, because we need to lead by example. So I think knowing every part of it, like doing a lot of research, gathering the information and how that information can fit in the company is really important. And leading as an example is also very important.
I absolutely agree with you. Tatiana, do you have some thoughts on this question?
I work with in different positions during my life career with Business Central. I was also like a practice lead, and I had a department with men and women. And I agree that it is very important then when management support women also. Like if you have only men in management, it is very difficult to be a part of management, to be one woman in this management team. And it is very important to have multiple gender team. Because it is a big advantage. Women and men have different minds, and they can bring different solutions and different approaches to some task or some strategies. And if you are a person from management, please try to share that it is equal for men and from women. It is important what people can make. It is most valuable for work. It doesn't matter on work, it is man or woman, because we are not in teams. We are talking about business tasks, and it is important to achieve business goals. And if you have professional, it doesn't matter the gender. And it is important to bring this culture to company.
Absolutely agree with you. We have 2 minutes left. Vanessa, do you want to wrap it up with any advice to Susan?
Yeah, I think Tatiana, when she talked about the differences, right, that men and women bring into a room, right? We're culturally, or both individually, we are very different. And when I'm interacting with someone, I think it's important to understand both, yes, male or female, but also the cultural differences. Even in this panel, we have Michelle from Israel, Tatiana, her origins are Russian, Deepthi, is it Deepthi? Deepthi? Indian? Pakistani? I couldn't remember. Indian. Okay. So even culturally, this room, as we come together, if you are really wanting to understand how to do that, I think you have to know who you're talking to and know where they're coming from, even understand something about where their values are, because that becomes important, right, to kind of bring everyone into, I think, the same path is understanding where that bridge needs to, where we need to bridge that communication. So.
I absolutely agree with you. There is so much more we could discuss on this topic. I feel like we have like several different more panels that we could be talking about on this topic. There's a lot of things we were not able to mention. And so I hope that we do at some point have another opportunity to get together and discuss it, because I would like to pick all of your brains for your perspectives and everything, because they're so valuable. It is so important to have diversity on a team, because it really helps create different solutions, and innovation is absolutely increased when you do have diverse perspectives on a team. So I would like to thank all of you so very much for participating in this panel. And I do hope that we can keep in touch, because I would love to continue these conversations. Amit, do you want to wrap us up?
Yes, of course. Thanks for the honor, Dr. Sangeeta. And yes, what a pleasure it has been hosting and moderating this for all of you. Just to let you know, we had close to about 50 people attending this live. And of course, great to see a few questions coming in. So thank you all once again for taking out time from your busy schedule for this so very important topic. So again, thanks, Dr. Sangeeta, Sanil, Tanya, Edward, Michelle, Deepthi, Thomas, and Vanessa. Thank you all. Have a lovely day, and hope to see you attending some sessions at DPS 2022. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And thank you, Amit, for hosting. We appreciate it.
Totally.
Everyone,
Thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of your
Thank
day or
you.
your evening, wherever you are.
Good day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep. Have a
Bye.
great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.